A man reads so many books that his brain simply dries up. He puts on rusted armor, mounts a starving, broken-down horse, and rides out to conquer a world that has already moved on without him. It sounds like a tragic study of dementia. And yet, it became the most influential comedy in human history. But here is the real contradiction. The mind-bending paradox we're going to unpack today. How exactly did a novel written in 1605 somehow manage to invent postmodernism, literally 350 years before the term even existed?
Welcome back to Learning with Pratik. If you're new here, I try to increase neuroplasticity by exploring a new topic every day. I do all the reading and researching so you don't have to. Today, we're opening the pages of Miguel de Cervantes' monumental creation, Don Quixote. Here is the roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The end of knights. 2. The real versus the ideal. 3. The first postmodern novel. 4. The cruelty of comedy. And 5. The ultimate disillusionment.
Section 1. The end of knights. To really understand this staggering leap Cervantes made, we have to ground ourselves in 16th and 17th century Spain. This was a nation undergoing a massive, deeply painful transformation. The feudal system was heading for total collapse, the empire was straining, and traditional ideologies were dying out. But the culture? It was still completely saturated with medieval knight stories. These were chivalric romances that the ruling class essentially used to anesthetize the public mind. Well, Cervantes explicitly set out to destroy their narcotic influence. How? By taking their foundational tropes and turning them violently upside down. Instead of a wise, omniscient chronicler translating some ancient manuscript, Cervantes gives us unreliable narrators who actively bicker over the facts. Instead of mythical awakenings and magical forests, Quixote wakes up in dusty, vulgar inns that he just hallucinates are grand castles. And those enchantments and giants, they're literally just windmills and flocks of sheep. Honorable quests are completely reduced to absurd, violent blunders. Cervantes was forcefully dragging literature out of the mythical past and dropping it right into the stark reality of modern Spain.
Section 2. The real versus the ideal.
You see, Cervantes didn't just write a parody. He built an entirely new narrative structure, relying completely on contrasting character dualities. It's a concept known as double coding. On one side, we've got Don Quixote. He speaks in this lofty, anachronistic, chivalric vocabulary. He represents pure, sky-high Patrician ideals. On the other side, we have his squire, Sancho Panza. Sancho is illiterate, entirely grounded, and processes the world through a highly pragmatic lens. He's constantly interrupting his master just to spit out earthy peasant proverbs. This right here is the birth of modern literary dialogue. It's high culture and low culture constantly crashing into each other out on the open road. The beating heart of the book's philosophical conflict is this immense struggle of holding on to beautiful, absurd ideals in a world that absolutely refuses to accommodate them. As Cervantes wrote, the maddest thing of all is to see life as it is and not as it should be. Don Quixote demands that the world be noble and magical, and the world responds by repeatedly punching him right in the teeth.
Section 3. The first postmodern novel.
Now, this is where Cervantes completely breaks the established rules of storytelling and leaps centuries ahead of his time. To really grasp this, we need to define two high-level concepts of literary theory, metafiction and metalepsis. Metafiction is basically fiction that knows it's fiction. It deliberately emphasizes its own artificiality. Metalepsis, on the other hand, is what happens when the boundary between the real world and the fictional world is suddenly overrun. Imagine a character in a movie pausing the film, walking right off the screen, and sitting down next to you in the theater. It's a total collision of realities, and Cervantes pulls this off flawlessly. The book's wild, real-world publication history makes this super clear. In 1605, Cervantes publishes Part 1, and it becomes this massive international hit. Then, in 1614, an imposter writing under the pseudonym Avellaneda publishes a fake, unauthorized sequel. Obviously, Cervantes is furious. So in 1615, he publishes his own vengeful Part 2. But he doesn't just ignore the fake book. Oh no, he writes the existence of the imposter's book directly into his own universe. So in Part 2, Don Quixote and Sancho ride out, only to discover that the people they're meeting have already read Part 1. Our heroes are effectively famous reality stars within their own fictional world. At one point, Don Quixote even meets a character who claims to have met the fake Don Quixote from the imposter's book. The real Quixote is so deeply offended that someone did a terrible job impersonating him that he literally changes his travel itinerary just to prove the imposter author wrong.
The legendary writer Jorge Luis Borges summarized the philosophical gravity of this structure perfectly. He said, "If the characters of a fictional work can be readers or spectators, we, its readers or spectators, can be fictitious." By making his characters aware of their own fictionalized history, Cervantes forces us, the readers, to question the solid ground of our own reality. It's deeply unsettling, and quite frankly, it is the very definition of postmodernism. Section 4. The cruelty of comedy. Now, for all of its brilliant structural games, there is a stark, ongoing critical debate about the sheer volume of physical and psychological violence in this book. On one side, we have the traditional humanist perspective. We can see this represented by the 19th century critic Vissarion Belinsky. He praised the novel for perfectly combining the serious with the funny, the tragic with the comic. From this viewpoint, Don Quixote's ability to endure endless beatings, mockery, and lost teeth without ever losing his faith is seen as a noble triumph of the human spirit. His madness is basically framed as a beautiful form of resilience. But we must impartially look at the counter-argument. In 1951, the brilliant novelist Vladimir Nabokov delivered a series of lectures at Harvard where he completely dismantled this warm, fuzzy interpretation. Nabokov neutrally but firmly argued that the book is actually a catalog of cruelty that is bitter and barbarous. He pointed out that the pranks played on Don Quixote, especially by the wealthy Duke and Duchess in Part 2, are just needlessly sadistic. They are essentially using a mentally fragile old man as a literal toy for their own aristocratic entertainment. Nabokov's methodology was meticulous. He actually sat down and kept a scorecard for all 40 of Don Quixote's physical battles throughout the massive novel. The final score? 20 wins, 20 losses. It really highlights the relentless, cyclical nature of the knight's physical suffering. It forces us to take a step back and ask a tough question. Are we laughing at a brilliant parody, or are we laughing at the agonizing abuse of a delusional man? Section 5. The ultimate disillusionment. The conclusion of this epic is somber, reflective, and honestly deeply tragic. For over 1,000 pages, we experience the madness of Don Quixote. And while it brings him pain, it also brings him purpose, grand adventure, and an unyielding faith in justice. But at the very end of the novel, he falls ill. On his deathbed, his sanity is abruptly, almost cruelly restored. He completely renounces chivalry. He realizes he is just Alonso Quijano, an old, dying man. And with that sanity comes deep regret, physical death, and the total loss of the ideal. The exact moment his sanity is restored, Sancho Panza's heart is broken, and the magic is stripped from the world forever. It's a devastating conclusion that leaves us with this final, provocative thought. Is there true heroism in holding on to an absurd ideal in a cruel world? Or is it matter still to see life only exactly as it is? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Tomorrow we open a different page. Until then, Pratik out.